All right, welcome to SGT Time with Sergeant Rod. I'm Sergeant Rod. This is my second attempt because I botched the first one and I have lost 10 minutes of my life that I will never get back. All right, so let's start with today's lesson, Women and Demographic Change. So go ahead, title this page in your journal. This is going to be our bridge between population, which is chapter 2, and migration, which is chapter 3. So once you come into class tomorrow, we're going to be focusing strictly now on migration, right? Let's begin. So at any point, if you're not done writing, just pause. Number 1, changing social values and access to education, employment, healthcare, and contraception have reduced fertility rates in most parts of the world. Notice I put little pictures down to represent each of these ideas. Education, employment, healthcare, and contraception. So all of these combined, right? Changing social values and access to these things. When we say access to these things, we're really talking about women's access to these, right? Women, in most parts of the world now, women have gained access to education when previously they did not. They've gained access to employment when previously they did not, to healthcare and to contraception. And that includes in this country, right? You don't have to go too far back to find an era when there are many jobs that were just not available to women. All right, so pause this if you need to. This is just really getting to the idea that things are changing, right, in most of the world. But these changing social, economic, and political roles for females have influenced patterns of fertility, mortality, and migration, as illustrated by Ravenstein's laws of migration. All right, so I see here, right, when it says speed, right, I always want you guys to think of speed, right, social, political, economic. And this is saying that, roles for women have changed socially, economically, and politically, right? We know this. The Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg just passed away a week ago. She was only the second woman on the Supreme Court in U.S. history. The Speaker of the House today, Nancy Pelosi, is the first woman in the first female Speaker of the House of Representatives. And 4 years ago, Hillary Clinton was the first female nominee by any major party for president of the United States. So that gets to the idea that in this country, which we pride ourselves on being, very, I don't know what the word is. We value women's rights. We still have a long way to go when it comes to, women having a lot of political power. But things are changing, right? Things are changing in society. They're changing, economically and politically. And all these changes are influencing, fertility, right? They're influencing mortality and they're influencing migration, right? As illustrated by Mr. Ravenstein, or maybe it's Ravenstein. I never know. With that EI, you never know whether it's Ravenstein or Ravenstein. But he had some laws of migration. That was kind of a theory, a little like Malthus's theory of population, right? But Ravenstein had his theories of migration. So underneath number 2, I want you to create a bulleted list, and we're going to list Ravenstein's laws of migration. So this might seem like it's more than it is. These are not going to be complete sentences you have to write. And you could always just, abbreviate if you want to. But I believe he's got 8 to 10. Let me see here. It looks like 10. Okay, so you're going to have to write 10 things. Sorry, you're going to hate me. But these are simple ideas, right? Ravenstein's laws of migration. So just know that when he says laws here, he's talking about, the way that he's treating migration and human migration like it follows laws of nature, the same way, that we could say the law of gravity, right? What goes up must come down. That was loud. So Ravenstein said that human migration also follows a set of laws, right? So here are his laws. Oh, okay. So you don't have to write this down. This was the guy. This is Ravenstein. Ernst Georg Ravenstein, originally from Frankfurt, Germany. Published in 1885. I thought it was a little after that, but all right. Okay, so number 1, most migration is over short distances. And that makes sense, right? When we think of, okay, sorry, I was reading this chart wrong. When we think of the who immigrates most to the US, we tend to think of people from Mexico. And this makes sense because Mexico is right across the border. It's not that far for Mexicans to immigrate to the US. It's actually very easy. So you can see right here this little arrow going from Mexico to the US. This one right from China to the US, that one's a little harder, though. There are reasons for that one. Most people, though, don't make a leap that large because it's hard to do, right? As we'll see as we go further in his laws, there are reasons that most migrants are poor, but they're generally escaping to somewhere that's richer. And because they're poor, they probably just don't have the means or the money to migrate those long distances. They're going to go where they can. And in this case, that usually means short distances. So most migration is over short distances. We also say that migration occurs in steps. All right. And let me pause here real quick. Okay, I just want to make sure I wasn't getting ahead of myself. Migration occurs in steps, which I believe is one of your vocab words. Step migration. It could be wrong. We'll go over migration more tomorrow and next week. And this means that migrants go in steps, usually starting in a very small rural village, and they might end up in a huge metropolitan city. But they don't go from rural village all the way to huge city. They go in steps, first a village to, or first a hamlet to a village to a small town to a big town to a city to a large city, right? And we go in these steps, right? So they don't go immediately from the most rural place you've ever been to the most urban. They go in steps. It says long-range migrants, but migrants in general, I don't think you have to put the word long-range there. Migrants usually move to urban areas, right? And when they move in steps. So these will start to, Ravenstein's laws will all kind of start to pancake, right? Migrants, they move in steps, and when they move, they almost always go rural to urban. All right, it is almost never the case that someone in the urban area goes out to the country. It could happen, right? Some people get sick of the city, but that's not usually the case. Each migration produces a movement in the opposite direction. So, though not necessarily in the same volume. So, if people are leaving, New York, that is migration out. They have to be going somewhere, and so wherever they go, that's migration in, right? So each migration produces a movement in the opposite direction. One person's leaving, right? One person's arriving. Though not necessarily in the same volume. All right. We kind of touched on this, but rural dwellers are more migratory than urban dwellers. So I kind of already said that, but I guess that gets to which one was that? It almost seems like the same to me as number 3. But yes, people in the country will migrate more than people in the city. And that has to do with the services that are provided, right? People in the country don't have a lot of things. So they tend to, go to where they will have a lot of things. And I mean there are like things to do, right? In the country they don't got probably water parks or, big sports stadiums. So if you like those things, right, you're going to go to a big city. So you can rephrase this if you want to, but this gets to women and demographic change. Within their own country, females are more migratory than males. But males are more migratory over long distances. So we're talking about people coming, from the example of Mexico to the US or from South America to the US. It's more likely to be men, all right, than women. It's more likely to be a man than a woman. Most migrants are also adults. All right. So it's rare for children to migrate, right? Because children are almost always under the care of adults. And once adults have children, it does become a lot more difficult to move places with them. Kids are expensive. All right, number 8. large towns grow more by migration than by natural increase, right? We talked, or did I say national increase? By natural increase. So, when we talk about births, births and deaths, that can get us a rate of natural increase. These large towns and these big cities, that's not really what's making them grow. It's really migration that's making them grow. You could see here a picture of migration to Las Vegas and how it's just made the place boom in population. All right, number 9. Migration increases with economic development. So this is annual legal immigration to the US, right? Which dipped in the 1940s, right around the time of World War II, and has just skyrocketed well, I don't want to say skyrocketed, but ever since. If this chart was to go beyond 2008, I think you'd probably see larger numbers. But the United States is very economically developed. And because we're economically developed, it stands to reason that people are going to want to move here because they want to have the same opportunities for their children. No, I rephrase it. They want their children to have opportunities that they did not, right? I don't want to say the same opportunity. And in addition to being, economically developed, the United States is also a beacon of human rights. So there are, we have the Bill of Rights. So there are reasons economics is not the only reason people choose to migrate here, but it is one of the biggest reasons. Which gets us right to number 10. Migration is mostly due to economic causes. So this chart right here, how the economic climate has affected interstate migration. Movers by educational level. I hadn't actually looked at this. Moving for money? I'm not sure if I'm understanding what this is showing. Movers by income level. I can understand that down here, the less money you make, right? $1 to $10,000 a year, that's not a lot of money. You could expect a lot more of those people to move, right? People who are making more money, they might not see the reason to move because they're probably making enough money already where they're at. But migration is mostly due to economic causes. So that was it. Sorry, I guess that video took a little longer. But hopefully we'll get to do, you guys all watch this tonight. We'll do something fun tomorrow. All right, bye.